and she was just so excited to share what she had learned. It was really fun. And we're going to continue with that. Mrs. Mayu's also working with her students in Flex, and they've created a timeline of the history of Hampstead that can be seen right down our main hallway in the school. So that's been great for the kids to see that, and that's still in development. We had our musical Matilda Jr. the weekend of March 15th and 16th with 3 shows. Really proud of the cast and the crew and all of the staff that put so much effort into it. It was a phenomenal show. And it was a show that had a little bit of a late start due to the passing of Miss Surwitz. And I just want to say I'm really proud of our students and the staff that worked hard to make the musical continue despite that. And you know, they did a really great job. There's a tribute to her before each show, and the kids really are amazing. And I was proud that we were able to hire a musical director that was able to continue with the show. I don't know how many of you got to see it, but it really was, in my very unbiased opinion, a fantastic show. We've had a couple of professional development opportunities. Our staff on voting day, our staff had a day where they were able to create their own professional development. They ask ahead of time, they let us know what they plan to do and get some approval from principals, but a lot of the day was being able to work with the team, work on their curriculum, some of it being grade level teams and some of it being content area teams, and they really had a productive day, and we're really excited to be able to share the things that they had time to work on, and very appreciative for the time, because we know in education having time for professional development is always a challenge, and when we can give them the time, they are excited to embrace it and do some great planning. So the other piece of professional development we've done recently, which is super important, is part 2 of our suicide prevention. Our counseling team has become the trainers for our suicide prevention and have put together really great training in 2 parts for the whole staff. So really thank you to Mr. Mayu and Mrs. Karpinski and Mrs. Barbic for being able to do that. It's not easy to present on a topic that's a tough topic. It's also not easy to present in front of your peers, but they really did a great job with that, and that was just last week. And then the last thing I'll talk about is the eclipse. I don't know if anybody knows, we had an eclipse yesterday. It was phenomenal. Our science team, with a lot of support from Mrs. Tomaselli, really did a great job of putting together an after-school activity here. We had about 130 students stay to view the eclipse, and it was pretty awesome to watch them. We brought them down to the hill, kind of the driveway that goes downhill, because we had all kinds of athletic practices happening at the same time, and they were lying down, they were sitting there talking to their friends, watching, talking about what they were seeing, and it really was fantastic. They just embraced it, and our student council with Mrs. Rubin put together some snacks that they sold, and they raised $209 that's going into our field trip scholarship fund. It was just an overall awesome event. So a really big thanks to our science department, and Martha Daniski and Lori Lynn Griffin really were kind of spearheaded that, like I said, with Nicole Tomaselli. So we're really excited to be able to provide that opportunity for our students. There was a lot of staff too, so it was awesome to see. And that is all I have for my report. Certainly entertain any questions.
Just kind of echoing your statements on Matilda, you know, with a 7-week preparation timeline, it's not a lot of time to throw a play together. So, you know, kudos to everyone involved. It was an awesome show.
Thank you. Yeah, that's true determination right there. And like I said, on the part of staff and definitely students too. We have a Matilda star in the audience tonight as well. So, thank you.
Right. And now an update on Pinkerton from Shannon Caffell.
All right, first off, 2 months until graduation. I'm definitely feeling it. The overnight fundraiser Astrothon was this past weekend with over 120 students and many faculty members participating. They raised $24,376 for Boston Children's Hospital. The World Language Honors Society inducted 112 students last Monday. The sports teams are in game/meet mode with this beautiful weather. And on that note, 56 athletes from the winter season were recognized by the NHIAA for their athletic and academic accomplishments. The Leadership Council of Athletics hosted a mattress fundraiser this past Sunday. The faculty play is this week, Thursday and Friday, $10 at the door, and the money goes to the senior scholarships. I say this every time, but the faculty play, it's always so funny. This year, it's the Wax Museum. And juniors participated in science testing today. The Easter egg hunt hosted by the class of 2024 was March 30th. And there's a college fair tomorrow, having around 150 colleges and military representation. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Shannon? Thank you, Shannon. All right, now with current business. We have Principal Milbury coming back up to talk about the HMS Oratorical Contest.
Thank you. So I am going to introduce Miss Katie Fortin, who has had quite some success with the oratorical. She's going to give her speech so that you get to hear it and then tell a little bit about it. And so I don't want to spoil anything she has to say. And if there's any other fill-ins after she goes, I'll let you know. Come on up, Katie.
So hello everyone, I'm Katie Fortin and I have done the oratorical contest and actually have ended up making it to the third and final competition. So I ended up doing the Second Amendment for my essay and I'll be reading it to you today. Quote, tragedy after tragedy, shooting after shooting, young life after young life, how many more children will die before government leaders act to keep children and their schools safe, end quote. This question was asked by Catherine Russell. When a school shooting happens, students can hear their hearts exploding out of their chests. This event was one very similar to the school shooting at Parkland, Florida. On February 14, 2018, 17 students and staff died at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. It was a tragic shooting that shook the nation. The Second Amendment states that any person can own a weapon, although having every person own a weapon could lead to more problems than good. Furthermore, the Second Amendment's history, meaning, and different views have led to many controversial debates. The Second Amendment is an important addition to the Constitution. It was ratified by James Madison in 1791. The specific date it was adopted into the Constitution was December 15, 1791. It was also a part of the Bill of Rights. Unlike other amendments, it is only 27 words long. However, how have guns evolved too? The first firearm was called the fire lance, which appeared in between the 10th to 20th centuries. The fire lance had a very short range and it could only go 3 meters or 10 feet. It was also a gun that only held one shot. Now, in the 21st century, there are rifles, pistols, shotguns, etc. The most recent gun is called the XM7, which can go up to 600 meters. As the world has evolved, it can seem that guns have become more advanced, leading to a more terrified society. Guns' history started out as not a big issue, however, it has now taken over. It is said that in 2021, 48,830 people died from a gun-related injury. As the history of guns start to overwhelm communities across the world, it is important to think back to the meaning of the Second Amendment as well. When a person first reads the Second Amendment, they may not understand what it means or how it is useful. The Second Amendment states, quote, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, end quote. The Second Amendment shows 3 main points, one of them being to form a militia. Even though this part of the amendment isn't used as much now, it was very important in early American history. Groups of men from each town would form militias to defend their town during war. This helped towns stay safe and protect themselves. Furthermore, another part of the Second Amendment is to bear arms. To bear arms means to own or possess a weapon. This is a form of self-defense to keep yourself protected. Lastly, right at the end of the Second Amendment, it says that this amendment shall not be infringed. This means that the Constitution is stating that the right to own a gun is a privilege that shall not be taken away. Having the Second Amendment shorter in length and not having as much detail has led to many debates as well. Currently, people have taken the Second Amendment a different way. First of all, having the Second Amendment not specify what certain weapons we can own has led to many horrific events, one of them being school shootings. Even though there have been many situations with the possession of guns, school shootings have recently become a big problem. Student schools get invaded by outsiders who own a weapon of their own, all because of the Second Amendment. Some people argue that the government should ban certain types of firearms. Having this limitation in the Second Amendment could prevent individuals from having too much freedom on what weapons they can own. However, others disagree that limiting access to guns is an infringement on individual rights. Lastly, people want to keep this right to be able to protect themselves from these situations or criminals. This is currently a big debate in American politics today. Finally, the Second Amendment's history and meaning has stuck with this amendment since 1971 when it got ratified into the Constitution. However, even amendments to this day bring arguments or situations that come into court. It is our responsibility to take action in circumstances where children are in danger. Since February of this year, it has now been 6 years since the students and staff at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School were killed from that horrifying school shooting. On a day in February in 2018 that was unlike no other and no one was prepared for. Ever since that day, all students around the world and their families have had to go through the suffering of multiple school shootings. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. So from the 15 that did their speeches here just for their peers, so, and thank you to Mrs. Wolf, she does a great job with them. You know, they're learning how to write the speech, but they're learning how to say the speech too. So it's not just the writing piece, it's the speaking piece of the oratorical. And then 2 of our students, Katie Fortin and Keelan Karpinski, went on to the districts and then were moved on to the states where last weekend, they competed at St. Anselm's and did very well last weekend. Keelan came in first and Katie came in fourth. So we're super proud of them and they've worked hard. And again, thank you to Mrs. Wolf for her hard work with the students. And thank you for being willing to speak in front of the school board.
Congratulations. All right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I thought it was really well done, and I'm glad you guys are having the conversations in school. It's really important to create that civic discourse. When people get out of school, often they stop talking to each other, and if you can talk in school, the next generation is going to need to be able to have those conversations, and so I appreciate that.
All right. And Aaron Milbury, we are asking you to come back up to talk about a donation from the Hampstead Mothers Club.
And if you have other things to do, I mean, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you did have other things to do and you'd like to take off, I think the board would understand that, so, yeah.
I'm quite sure she probably has some homework or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
very
again
much.
for
Okay, thank you, well done.
So I put out, last year when we went to Washington DC, we were able to get t-shirts for all the students that went. And again, I was hoping to do that as well. So I had asked the community if anybody would be willing to help us with donations and figuring with this generous community, people would give donations here and there. And the Mothers Club came forward and donated $700, which should pretty much cover the entirety of the t-shirt order. So I would ask the board if they could please accept that donation so that we can purchase t-shirts for all of our students and staff who are going to Washington DC, and I thank them for their generosity. I also just want to mention a thank you to the other parents that stepped forward and said that they would be willing to chip in and pay for some, if not all, of the t-shirts as well. So we really are lucky in Hampstead with the kind and generous community that this is.
All right. Well, I will go ahead and make a motion to accept the donation from the Hampstead Mothers Club for $700 toward the t-shirts for the Washington DC trip.
I'll second the motion and thank both the Mothers Club and the community that was willing to come out and support.
All right. All those in favor?
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. And now, the technology update from Mr. Dion.
Good evening, Hampstead School Board. About to show you our Hampstead Technology Update on today, April 9th, 2024. From left to right on the department picture, we have Caesar Hilton, our Network Administrator. Next up is Michael Shaw, our Senior Network Administrator. Marie Nicolosi, our Administrative Assistant, whom we share with Facilities Department. Myself, the Director of Technology, and Teddy Brown, our Technology Assistant. We do a lot of behind-the-scenes work in technology, but it is critically important that we keep our staff and students safe. Here are some of the actions that we take to enforce this. As a district, we are compliant with the Children's Internet Protection Act. Some of the procedures in place for the SIPA compliance would be our securely content filter for all students. All students at Hampstead Middle School and Hampstead Central School have this content filter. This is a managed Chrome extension that is pushed down through the Google admin console, and it cannot be removed. This protects them in the buildings and also when they take their devices home. So it's 24/7 protection for them. We also have building level firewall and content filtering for all users. What that means is when a student is in our buildings, they actually have 2 layers of protection. They have a hardware content filter and firewall that works along with the securely filter. Another, what we also have is the student accounts are unable to send or receive emails outside of the hampsteadschools.net domain. There are a few exceptions that we add in for tutors or other people that are authorized, but no one from the outside can email our students, and they can't email anyone on the other side. We also utilize Virtue Email for sensitive student information communication. Anytime we're going to be talking with Pinkerton or another district, if there's any kind of student information, we have that, and we make sure that that is encrypted. Equally important to our department is keeping our students' data and staff, our student and staff data private. We are compliant with the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act in the following ways. Teachers and staff request software through a Google form that they can find on their staff bookmarks and also on the website. The Data Governance Committee meets twice a month to review these software requests. Any approved piece of software has to have a digital privacy agreement with the vendor to ensure the student's personal identifiable information is safe and also secure. Hampstead School District is a member of the Student Data Privacy Consortium, sharing a national and also a state database of these agreements. Through this system, we can piggyback off of other already established state agreements. Staff members also cannot install any software without having a technical staff present with their credentials, which then would require their proper approval. Our department is also working closely with the Student Services Department to implement online IEP access within our student information system, PowerSchool. We do this through a process called the PowerSchool Document Management. This provides safe and secure access for case managers and authorized staff. This saves time by allowing quick access to important information during meetings, and the implementation for this project is going to go live tomorrow. I have a meeting at 10 a.m. to push this forward. After that is live, I'm going to train the Student Services staff on uploading the IEP files from the state database to our student information system. As of February 23rd, the entirety of Hampstead School District staff is enrolled in 2-factor authentication. For any staff member that did not want to use their personal device as a second factor, we provided YubiKey security tokens that plug into an available USB port for account verification. 2-factor authentication is essential to security because it immediately neutralizes the risks associated with compromised passwords. If a password is hacked, guessed, or even phished, that no longer gives them access for an intruder. Without this second factor, knowing someone's password is essentially useless. Over the course of the year, our department has run multiple phishing campaigns within our organization. The current risk score is obtained in multiple ways, including the average of individual users' risk scores in our organization. Some of the determining factors are data pulled directly from our campaigns, but also the job role security levels. Our department is going to work on lowering our organizational risk score by creating security awareness user trainings and enrolling at-risk staff members in this training. So we're going to be going below 25.7 into the green to a more acceptable risk. Right now, our cybersecurity and infrastructure work, for us, in the technology department, summer is the busiest time for us. This is when we do all the heavy lifting and take care of projects that simply cannot be done when school is in session. We will be refreshing our core switching environment at HCS and HMS. This is the backbone of our infrastructure and is the medium in which all devices communicate. Not only that, we are refreshing our physical host servers and our virtual environment. This also includes the storage area networks at both schools, which holds all of our internal data. We're going to update our backup infrastructure as well. Our current infrastructure between both schools, the hardware for that end of life service is 2025. So it's essential that we replace this equipment so we can continue to get security updates and keep our students and our staff safe from online threats. Here are some upcoming technology tasks. We are going to prepare for device collection on both staff and students. We go through every device in the summer and ensure that the devices are working properly, the keyboards, the webcams, the state of the computers themselves, and we fix anything on spot that is not working properly. We are also going to test the broadcasting procedure for Comcast for our HMS graduation that's upcoming. And we will process the end of year state reporting for the Department of Education. That is something that we process from our student information system, PowerSchool. We export that data and upload it into the current system that the Department of Education uses. Our department is also going to partake in internal training for the state information system, ALMA, which is going to be a brand new system that they're rolling out next year. We have a training for that on Thursday. Ongoing security awareness training, that is always going to be happening. I talked about that earlier. And we're also going to conduct tabletop exercises with a third-party organization for our admin team. Now, we have already conducted internal tabletop exercises. We also reviewed our incident response plan and our disaster recovery plan with this team. The third party that we're going to use is going to be CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is a government agency. And we will also be back in May to reaffirm our data governance plan. I would like to make a mention that our department is fully staffed now, and I'm very thankful for that. And it allows us to dive into some of these deeper projects and really get some of the work done. So thank you. Questions and comments?
Do we have any idea, so fishing was the 25.7, do we have any idea how that compares to other districts in the coalition that we're in?
I don't know about other school districts, but I know for organizations, a lot of them are in the 30%. So we're actually, when we first ran this about a year ago, we were in the 30%. So we're already seeing improvement, but I really would like to see us get into the green.
When you go to one of those meetings or when those meetings are held, if you can ask them, but that's not a huge priority, but if you can. Mm-hmm. And then artificial intelligence, ChatGPT, stuff like that. Do the students have access to it? Do the teachers have access to it?
The students do not have access to it because you need to be 18 in order to sign their acceptable use policy for the software. As far as the staff, we are not blocking it for the staff.
Okay, thank you.
I was just curious, is there a real-time monitoring software for students making inappropriate searches or something, they're talking about self-harm or something like that? Is there a software in place that will alert administration?
That's a great question. When I started talking about Securely, that content filter also takes care of those searches. The principals actually get emails on any kind of self-harm or any disruptive wording searches, so they're aware of it immediately. I also get them too. Okay. So that is part of the protection that is included in that package, yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe, how frequently do you do the phishing campaigns?
So right now we have one active. I have them, I work with Michael Shaw on that. That's one of the projects that we do. We usually have at least one campaign active. It does not hit everyone at once. It's spread out over time. I'm very pleased to see a lot of staff members forwarding emails, giving me calls, asking me what's going on, because some of them are really crafty that we're sending out, saying that we're from the IT department at Hampstead, and things like that. Bob's smiling because I think he's seen a couple of them that I've sent out.
I feel like I send stuff to Joe like on a regular basis, especially now that it's hiring season. We're getting a lot of sort of bad actors that will send out emails with attached resumes, and they're not. Yeah, so Joe's been great. He's very responsive in terms of evaluating the risk, so.
Thank you.
And you mentioned the IEP materials being accessible in PowerSchool.
Yes.
Who specifically will get access to that once those are available?
That would be the case managers that are working with the student, and the access is what I would work with student services to grant to the people that need to see it.
Got it. I just wanted to clarify, whether parents or anyone else would eventually have access or not, but you're saying primarily it's the case managers?
It is. The way it works, though, is it will also be available to the parents, to their own kids' IEP through the parent portal.
Great.
It's the same system.
Okay. Any other questions for Joe?
I guess, bouncing off of the IEP one, how did teachers share their IEPs with other teachers or the case managers?
That's a great question. I would love to defer to student services because I don't directly work with that, but I believe that, Bob, do you want to answer this one, or?
Sure. So right now, there's either electronic transmission or paper copies. It really comes down oftentimes to teacher preference. This is a far more efficient way. They're upfront, because I'm very familiar with the system. I've used it before. There is some work up front, getting it up and running, but once it's up and running, the IEP remains in PowerSchool until it needs to be updated. And the great thing is that you can toggle access for specific users. So I'll give you an example. The school nurse may need to see a child's IEP if there's some health considerations, but maybe wouldn't need to if there were a learning disability. So the case manager can go through and identify what we call under FERPA as an adjoined party, someone that would have access to information. So it's really an efficient way to do that, and I do appreciate it because there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's still a lot of work to be done. But Joe and Jessica, their willingness to get this implemented was, it's very impressive. So.
You mentioned targeting people, there's people at risk for phishing. What makes someone at risk?
Whether or not they would click on some of the campaigns that get sent out, and also some of the job role levels, like if Bob Thompson at the top of the hierarchy of our organization, by default is going to be higher at risk than, say, someone that is not the superintendent. But Bob has a great score, by the way.
Thank you. I'm very proud of that score.
Good job, Bob.
That's all I got.
Right. Anything else for Joe?
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
All right, next we'll hear about an HCS renovation update from Superintendent Thompson.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, as presented at the last meeting, our renovation project is underway. A lot of the work that's being done right now is being done in an office. It is not being done on site. The tentative schedule has us beginning the on-site work on Monday, May 27, 2024. We have a meeting with the project manager, the contractor, and the architect tomorrow. At that meeting, we will get an updated, or should get an updated schedule. We will also sort of dive into that schedule. You know, as a school that will have an active construction project going on, we want to get a better understanding of what noise level will be like and what the disruption will be like. Tomorrow's meeting will also focus on the bid process and how we can get the word out to some of our local subcontractors or contractors to be able to bid on the project. That's important for us, not just because they're local, but the previous project really demonstrated that some of our local contractors had very competitive pricing and they do really high quality work. So we want to ensure that they have the ability to bid on certain aspects of the project. That information will go onto our website. The big challenge right now is space and how we're going to navigate from essentially May 27th to the end of the year, and then the end of the year to presumably the end of October. Dr. Cheney has done an excellent job of looking at the room schedule. As of right now, the plan is, and I highlight that word, as of right now, the plan would be to displace the library during the construction project. There's still some word about where the library will go, how mobile the library will be. There's also a displacement of the art classroom. So during the project, art will go on a cart. That is less than ideal, but Mr. Torelli's done a nice job of sort of planning out what his year will look like. So the big projects, which is largely like the clay projects, can still get done. They'll just be worked around the timeline for the construction project. I will tell the community that even with those 2 rooms being utilized during the project, there's still some concern about noise and about the need to further displace other classrooms. And we're looking at some preliminary ideas that would include, is it possible to utilize some of the portables in the back of the school? I have some concerns, so does Dr. Cheney, about safety, so we have to address safety issues before that is a major consideration. And then is there any other availability for space off property with HCS? And again, I know when we say things like this, we can raise the anxiety of people at home, but we do have to consider all the possible options. Right now we have 2 solid plans in place for the library and the art room, but we are looking into other considerations in anticipation that the noise from the project may warrant further decisions about space. So that's where we at. I should have more information to give to the board after tomorrow, and then we look forward to getting this project underway. So I'll entertain any questions that the board might have.
I have a question. If teachers are going to be moving rooms, I know that can be a big thing. Are they going to have time? How does that look for their schedules as far as getting more time in October to reset up a classroom?
Yeah, no, it really is a great question. So I think the good news, well, I don't know that there's good news when it comes to teachers relocating classrooms. I'm married to a teacher, so I understand the stressors that causes. I think they're going to start the project over Memorial Day. We don't have school on the Friday of Memorial Day. That allows our custodial staff to get in there, make any moves that they need. We can have additional support in doing that. Largely we're not asking, a teacher's going to pack up their classroom, so we will have to build in time to do that. And that is something that, Dr. Cheney will work with teachers to do. When we did the 60s renovation, we had a real serious issue where teachers were not able to move into their classroom until like a day or 2 before school started. And so we got very creative with what that looked like, what time we gave them. So we're committed to being able to give them the time to do that. But it is no small thing. It is a very stressful thing, and we recognize that.
When's the last time we actually used the portables for students?
So it's been a while, and I also want to be clear that right now there is no formalized plan to do that. We're really talking about that. If that were to be something that we did, we have to make an investment in some security pieces that I am not comfortable disclosing in public. But the first question is, can we keep our students and staff safe if we were to consider it? If we can answer that question, then the question that we would move on to is what specifically would we use that space for? It is less than ideal, even if we can address the safety issues. You know, people will tell you, staff will tell you, I've been adamant that we not use them. And I know that people will say, well, why are we changing courses? And it's because I don't have a lot of other solutions, so.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, if we haven't used them in a long time, I don't, like health-wise, like I feel like you'd have to deep clean them as well. There's a whole bunch of added costs, and it still doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, they are used. One portable in particular, that's called Portable 2, is used by staff. There's a prep room in there. Our maintenance has an office in there. Our our technology teacher, our para-educators have a workroom in there. So they are used. They're not used for student space. And that's a question that we have to ask, is that something that we want to look at?
I guess I have a question for that. Did a previous board, when they removed the last portable, was that because of safety that they had them stop using the portables?
I'm going to defer a little bit to the institutional memory in the room.
That was
Yeah, less than ideal, and I really welcome other options that folks have. And again, I want to be clear, we have not made that decision, but I think that in fairness, we need to put that out to folks as a consideration. I would like to not use them, but I'm not sure I have a lot of other.
Girls used them when they were last at the central school, and it was an issue with kids going to the bathroom and coming in and out and being alone, and
There is no
snow
question.
pants and boots.
Yeah, we cannot have a class of kids out there for an entire day. You can't. You can't.
I appreciate you being open in the communication of the possibility, but also that we're going to try to stay away from that if possible.
Right. Any other questions, or I'll just kind of reiterate, how much I appreciate Mrs. Cameron, the library, and Mr. Turilli and their willingness to temporarily relocate. I know, again, it's not convenient for anyone, but it is temporary, so just appreciate their flexibility there. Okay. Thank you, Bob. Mr. Dowd is going to present the 2022-2023 financial audit report.
Yes, and you have a copy of the report in your binder. It's bound. And you also have a letter, a governance letter, which is from the auditing firm directly to the members of the school board and the superintendent. And so sometimes it's a little easier to take a look at that letter. That letter is dated March 27th. And it really describes a lot of what their work is, what we've done, if we've had any disagreements, if there are any problems. Very unexciting letter overall. So I don't know if you have any questions on the governance letter itself. So in previous years, we had always had a qualified opinion on our audit based on the fact that we had not onboarded our fixed assets, capital assets, which have now been onboarded and presented, and audit has been, we've reviewed all the information with audit, and they're very happy with it apparently, and everything is good. So the opinion looks a little bit different this year than it did in years past. The adverse opinion that we received previously was just in relation to our lack of inclusion of those fixed assets, and we really had nothing else out there, but it is nice to have a clean audit report. I will note that the audit report itself really is not the most user-friendly document out there, and it really is meant for, and I hate to say this, but it's really meant for people in suits that sell government bonds and do assessments of long-term risk and things like that. It really is just not in a friendly format. However, the friendliest format is probably in the management discussion and analysis, which starts on page 3. I go over a little bit of information that you may find useful relative to what government funds are, some of the notes of the financial statements, some financial highlights as you move on, as well as a governmental activities balance sheet, which gives comparative numbers from the previous year to the current year being reported, as well as similar information for our revenue and expenditures, and some explanation on our fund balance, and our fixed assets are listed last. Just moving on to page 10, we have no long-term debt. We do have some long-term debt, however, that is listed in terms of leases payable, compensated absences, pensions, related liability, and other post-employment benefits. The total of that long-term debt is $36,413,145. It seems like a very large number. It is. That really requires a lot of fancy actuarial work to get to. Leases payable, compensated absences payable, no problem there, but the pensions related liability and the other post-employment benefits net are really projected out and brought back and valued at what the potential could be in the future. It's really not the most helpful document. Pensions related liability, just as a note, the New Hampshire Pension Retirement System is working on reducing their deficit, and that should reduce the deficit that a lot of our local districts are showing as well.
Jeff, can you kind of go into more detail on the compensated absences and really kind of what that means and why it's considered long-term debt?
Andy, that's a great question, because it's a compensated absence in the sense that typically something is less than long-term if it's less than 1 year, right? So we're presuming that it's going to be longer than 1 year. And these are absences that sometimes we'll be able to stay on the books, we'll be able to carry forward. Sometimes somebody might be at a max balance, or perhaps it's a retirement related compensation element based on time that is factored into that. And when it's tied into those longer term factors like a retirement or something, it's not going to be any time in the near future. It's not like we're banking, everyone's carry forward vacation time that they'll use in the next year. Yeah. This is more of the longer term stuff. That's an excellent question. Like
FMLA long-term leave, or
if someone is able to cash in time when they leave, when they depart the district for whatever reason, it could be through retirement or early leave or terms or provisions of their respective collective bargaining agreement.
So first, I really liked that they liked how you did the capital assets and with the historical information, because when we're using historical documents to come up with a thing, I'm glad they appreciate that. Any auditor is obviously going to come up with something. So they said significant risks identified. They had management override of controls and then a proper revenue recognition. Can you just quickly go over what those are?
They're, I think, struggling in a way, but I can talk about the revenue recognition aspect of it. I suppose that there could be a misclassification of revenue, being reported that doesn't necessarily get picked up, but typically that all goes through. It all goes through an audit at the end of the day. I do like the mood lighting. There we are. So I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Oh, management controls, yes. On the management controls, I guess it's possible that there could be fraud if our internal control structure broke down. So, and just by way of example, I don't have access to checks in my own office. And the people that cut checks for us do not have access to those checks.
Okay.
So I don't write checks, and if I did write checks, I can't get access to them. But it would be some kind of control probably like that that could happen. But.
I do like the fact that these reports used to be longer, and they're getting shorter and shorter every time we see them. And also that one of the things they notice is significant difficulties encountered during the audit and disagreements with management. They didn't have any issues whatsoever. And so it feels like these are getting streamlined and shorter, which I appreciate, because I agree they're super dry.
Oh, gosh.
So
perfect cure for insomnia. Any other questions? I'm more than happy to take a deep dive or explain any of the categories to the extent that I can. I will say that these reports are, I think my management discussion analysis is among the more helpful aspects of the report, because it does have the comparative data. But getting into the report itself, it just is not the most friendly format. And it was interesting because I had been at a conference this summer, and the CPAs were discussing the fact that they were looking to promulgate their own regulations to make these a little bit more straightforward and user-friendly for the actual users, who are the taxpayers, who are the people in the district, who are people, not the people that sell bonds and investments and all of that. It really needs to be a little bit more friendly for all of us. So they go through, they have us, put together all kinds of schedules, and then they decide it's too much, reel it back. So I'm hoping that these will get a little bit more user-friendly in the future.
Now, is this available online through the district?
So what I'm going to ask the board to do is to simply accept the report. I don't know what happens if you don't accept the report, but I'll ask you to accept the report by motion. And once you do that, if it's okay, I'll publish it to the web.
So I was just going to say, I guess I'll put it out to the board and kind of get your thoughts before I make a motion to accept it. Do we want more time to kind of digest this and come up with any more questions and maybe accept it during the next meeting, or do we feel comfortable accepting it as it is now? Anyone have any thoughts either
What's
way?
the Freedom of Information Act say about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably more for you guys. So this is, I think, my third or fourth one that I've read. I feel comfortable with it, and also that if we put it out to the public too, if they find something, they can always bring it to us, and we can always bring it back too.
I've seen a lot of these before, so I'm certainly fine with it, and the public has a right to see it. So.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
I would just say I think the public has a right to see it, so I don't know
I would agree.
what we would.
Okay.
Okay. All right, well, I will make a motion to accept the 2022-2023 financial audit report as it was presented.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you, Mr. Dowd.
All right.
So I have a quick question on, is the technology slideshow, is that something we can put up too, in case the people want to
Yes,
see it?
we can certainly do that.
Because I thought it was really well done, and also the child protections I think are important for people to see.
And Mr. Dowd, you are also going to give us an update on the GMR budget impact?
Yes. And in your packet, you should have a memo from me on letterhead. So a couple updates. So for the newer board members, we received in the fall a budget number, which they call the Guaranteed Maximum Rate, or GMR. So this year, we received that budget rate in October of 25% for the 24-25 school year, and that's how we budgeted. The actual rate has come in at 21.1% for all of our health and medical plans. And the difference, for all intents and purposes, provided that everything stayed pretty much consistent with where it is right now, is a favorable $226,000 budget impact. So I like that, so that's good. However, we have another potential budgetary impact, and that is that we offer through our HEA collective bargaining agreement a retiree medical supplement. And so I explain a little bit of that supplement in the memo, how it works. Certain qualifying employees are able to qualify for this after a certain number of years and age. And one of the things that we cover is a Medicare supplement, which is for those who are of retirement age, of Medicare qualifying age. The rate for that is $880.06 per month. So that amount has grown and blossomed over the years, if you will. Come January 1st, Health Trust is going to be rolling out, or they will be implementing, a new Medicare Advantage plan, which they've customized to meet what we have right now for our Medicare supplement plans. And the cost of that will be $409.23 per month. So I expect this year we'll have a smaller savings, but I think that we'll have some savings in the 24-25 year on the January to June end. So we'll have basically a payment that was $880 now going to $400 for all of our retirees for 6 months, which should result, I think, in about $40,000 altogether in the 24-25 school year. A favorable budget pickup as well. So another nuance in our collective bargaining agreement are the HEA contributions. And this year, our base contribution, employee contribution is 12% for HMO Blue New England plans as well, and 5% for ABSOS plans. With the way that our union agreement is structured, the district will absorb up to 10% of an increase. The remainder after that will be split between the employee and the district. So our actual rates for HEA coverage will be 15.48% employee contribution on the HMO Blue New England plans and 9.12% for the ABSOS plans. So that provision helps to cushion our heavy years when we can't always budget, and we can't budget out a lot. So that will just help us with the first year. Next year, their rates would reset to wherever the board agrees to in contract.
Okay.
But that is something that would come into effect this year because we did end up over 10%. And that's factored into our savings. It had actually been factored in at the 25%.
So the GMR, that's what they notified of us that was going to be going up. Is that correct?
That was the maximum locked-in rate that Health Trust would commit to us.
Okay.
They're ceiling basically.
Okay. And that has come down. So the really bad news from three months ago is still not great news, but better news than before.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And taken over a whole, this is an extraordinarily high year, but we've had unreasonably low years.
Yeah.
5%. We had one year we went down like -2% recently. So it's not great timing. But I think that the upside is that on a longer term basis, Health Trust, and I really need to see how the Medicare Advantage plan works that they're looking to roll out, but they've found a way to create some synergies and to be able to reduce rates. And I'm hoping that as we move forward, as more prescription drugs are able to be negotiated, those negotiated savings will come through to our plans. As part of that Medicare Advantage transition, and our retirees should be getting notification from Health Trust directly on that this week, or it should be going out this week anyway. But being able to craft a plan that can save quite a bit of money is helpful. Part of that is because of the ability of Medicare in the future to be able to negotiate prescription drug costs as well. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to see that on our side as well coming up. And the reason I say our side, the Medicare pool, once it goes to Medicare Advantage, will be removed from our risk pool.
Oh, okay.
So they'll be their own pool going forward as well, which, I can't say that it will or will not have, an impact, but certainly would better measure, I think, our true risk pool, having simply just, all medical plans, not Medicare type plans. So we'll see. So those are some updates from Health Trust. Just why David brought it up at the last meeting. I said, let me just, we need to talk, because there's a few things going on that.
Yeah, that's a lot, but
Yeah.
it's semi-good news.
I think it's really good news.
Yeah.
I mean, for where we had anticipated.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how perspective is. I wouldn't have thought 21 was good, in October. All of a sudden, now it's not 25, so it's great.
Five times is not great, but it's better than 6 times.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, and knowing that they're really looking to reel in costs, I think what is most refreshing to me. I haven't seen any relief like this Medicare Advantage. I don't think in ever. They've done some progressive programs, but you really have had a hard time seeing the results in dollars and cents. So I'm hoping that going forward, they're able to manage the costs. We have some other plan offerings coming in the next year on the employee side as well that should be able to take better advantage of claims processing and pre-approvals and that sort of thing that should reduce costs. So not great news, but I think that there is some light at the end of the tunnel.
For the Medicare supplemental, and I know this is not something you're going to be able to pull out of the top of your head, but if you can get me or the board numbers on how many are currently in, and then how many we would expect over the next 5, 10, 15 years.
Yeah. So as of right now, we have 15.
15? Okay. Okay, well, that's impressive that you pulled that right out.
So between the 226,000 savings from the GMR and the 40,000 from the HEA, I think it would be helpful to the public to kind of reiterate what what we do with those savings from our budget.
Yep, I agree. And typically, unless they're there, but as a general proposition, I wouldn't necessarily have anything earmarked for them, mostly due to the fact that we really don't know what our enrollments are for next year. Is there going to be something? Yeah, we'll have a favorable budget line variance there, but I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, unless the board has some priority.
Can you speak to, I guess, in instances where we do, over project, over budget, what we've done in the past with those savings?
So this year we had an over projection in our tuitions, and we needed additional funding in special education services.
Yep.
So we came to the board and said, hey, we have something here that we'd like to move there, and that's a lot of times what would happen. But other times it's just going to go back to unencumbered fund balance. So
I can actually give you an example that was discussed at the last meeting. We have this grant for the student assistance personnel. So we didn't anticipate that. We're beyond budget season. That grant is funded at 75%, but the district would need to contribute 25%. That's a really great deal. But we didn't anticipate that during the budget season. So that's where your sort of unanticipated expenses would come from.
Great.
I look for ways not to spend the money, Bob. I'm not sure that's the same. His purpose is good.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for Jeff?
No.
Okay. Moving on. The comparative district budget analysis. So just to give a little background on this, I will blame Dave and pick on him since he's not here. He brought this to us as a priority, basically bringing up the fact of wanting more transparency into all of the different things that we spend money on as a district and how we're kind of stacking up against other schools in the area on things like special education, full-time teacher salaries, benefits, those types of things. And I reached out to the board members to get their thoughts, and the consensus that I got was that it was a good idea to gather that information, specifically for instances where if someone from the public comes to us and has questions about why we made a decision that we did, or why the district is operating in this way, we just have better answers of where we're spending our money. I definitely don't think that's a bad thing to have more transparency and more answers. So what Jeff has presented us here. Jeff, did you want to speak a little bit to?
I certainly can. I put together a very brief, succinct schedule, which I don't have for the public, and really the numbers are it's sort of in a little bit of a pilot mode. Some exciting things are coming down from the DOE in terms of being able to actually review and compare district and district expenditures, which I'm really excited about. And this is just a sample of some of the data we've been able to look at so far. And so I've listed Hampstead, Auburn, Chester, Dairy Co-op, Hooksett, and Timberland Regional, along with some ADA and ADMR information, which is our student attendance, our average daily attendance, and our actual students and residents. So you can see for Hampstead, for example, it's reflecting both that we have students in attendance, 791, and then our total residents of 1167. But in that, you see a breakdown of regular instruction, special programs, vocational programs, other instructional programs. Then on to student services, instructional staff support, general admin and business, school administration, business services, plant operations, pupil transportation, non-public programs, community programs, which we don't, we have a very small budget for that. On to note interest, charter school, agency costs, et cetera, and food service, as well as the respective percentage of their total spend. So we can look and say, okay, so how do we compare for regular instruction? We're at 48.6%. How do we compare to Chester? Well, Chester's at 55.3%. Timberlane is at 43%. How do we compare on specialized programs? We're at 25.5%, Auburn's at 20, Chester's at 14, Derry's at 23, Hookseth's at 25. So it gives you a spirit of where those expenditures are relative to, I'll say, surrounding districts. Not all, I don't say competing, and I'm not even going to say necessarily comparable, because Timberlane Regional School District itself is just so much bigger, if you will. But I'd like to know from the board, what information would you like to see? What else would you find useful in this type of analysis?
Just something that, for me, that I saw is, so when you look at the first 5 after instructional programs, which is support services, instructional staff support, admin, school admin, business services, basically if you add them up, Auburn, Chester, Derry, Hooksett are roughly 17, Timberlane's at 22, they are a regional school district, and we're only at 14. So, and I mean, for me, you guys are amazing and you do an incredible job, and you're doing it at a low cost, because I think that's one of the things too, is the work you guys put in for the budget and the work you do to make sure that we're effective as possible, we can then roll over into instruction, because 74% of our budget is going towards instruction, which is where we want it. So that's good stuff.
Thank you.
I'm willing to bet Mr. Smith is going to want more detail, just right off the bat. We're regular instruction. I could see, if we're talking about salaries versus benefits or something like that, what that breakdown looks like compared to other school districts or other schools in the area. So my hope is that we all kind of hold on to this and digest the information a little bit, and we can talk more about it and kind of bring it back to Bob for possibly the May 13th meeting, or prior to that, prepare something for the May 13th meeting that's a little more detailed. So again, hope to discuss this more with all of you, but Jeff, I really thank you for giving 4 days notice of being able to put this together. I think this is a great jumping off point.
It's almost secret. So,
Go. Well, I don't know what the secret is.
well, I had it for the last meeting, but you guys had a very late night.
Yeah, and I
But
do.
we hadn't talked about it.
Yeah, and I give Jeff a lot of credit, because I had conversations with Mr. Smith. I had a conversation with Andy as well. And, trying to sort of conceptualize what the board was looking for. And I sit down and have a conversation with Jeff, and he's able to pump out, maybe not exactly what we're looking for, but at least a starting point. And I think this is a really great exercise, and I do think there's more work to be done, because annually we come and we say, okay, here are the school districts from an instructional standpoint that we compare ourselves to. Here's the data. So to do that from a finance side of things, I think is wonderful, because people do ask questions about our per pupil cost, because people in this community make a significant investment in education. And, I brag that we have a teaching staff that is highly educated, has a lot of experience, and if we're going to retain high quality experienced teachers, well, we have to invest in them. And so I think diving into the data is a great exercise for us to go through.
So, and what you're looking at here is much more at a functional level, and we can also look at it from what we call an object level, which are those functions: salaries, supplies, benefits, that sort of thing. So if that's helpful, I can put together some information on that and just see how we compare. I'm glad that you guys. I was excited about being able to have this data and have it so comparable to other districts. It's not exact, but at least it's something.
And I do think if we go more specific and go down that road, that's something like the South Central Superintendent's Organization, School Board Association for the state, administrators for the state, like reaching out and having conversations with them, where it's not our district piling through and doing all the work, where it's multiple districts, or somebody outside like Carsey that does public policy, or something like that. So that I think it's a great idea, but if it's going to be a great idea, and I would love to be beneficial to everyone, but I don't want to actually incur all the cost and spend all the time when we can share the cost if everybody's going to benefit as well.
Well, the DOE has been very active about looking to get information out, and that's where a lot of this has come from. So I'm very happy with the level of data analysis that they're putting in. It's helpful for us. It is a lot of work. Thank you, Carl.
Right. So we will mark that as to be continued. I finally get to call you Vice Chairman Hubner. Dr. Hubner is going to give us an update on the revision of New Hampshire Ed 306 regulations.
So I went to the state Board of Education meeting on the hearings on the 306s. I wasn't aware, so Fred Bramante, who's the former commissioner, was the person that, he has an organization that was contracted by the state. The contract did not go out for bid. He was just hired directly by the commission. I wasn't sure, actually, I don't know if it was the commission or whether it was the current commissioner. And there was a process. He went around, had listening sessions, depending on who you talk to, how relevant they were. There's a bunch of differing opinions on that. They turned out the New Hampshire 306s. The first real new draft was about 3 months ago. The most recent draft was about a month and a half ago in the middle of February. It has a lot of significant changes. One of the biggest changes is they're removing the mandatory cap on class sizes, which currently is 35 for high school, 30 for middle school, and 25 for elementary school. One of the language changes they have is they're changing most of the shall languages to may language, which means that shall is you have to do this, may is you have the option of doing this. A positive is it gives a lot more local control. Negative is they're fundamentally changing the demands of local education. For example, it would make it so high schools do not have to have, say, 4 credits of English. They just have to have English. They don't have to have 3 credits of math. They just have to have math. And what that may entail is highly dependent on each individual school board. So you could have vast differences between different districts. Something I was actually thinking about earlier, I do not think Pinkerton is massively going to overhaul their curriculum, but it would give them the option of doing something like that and then putting the board into a situation where we would have to make a really difficult decision with the change of the requirements. One of the shall to mays they did was custodials. There's the change would make it so that you don't actually have to clean your schools. There are a bunch of differing opinions on why this is happening. There's information out from state educational advocacy groups, which obviously they're going to advocate for public education. Obviously I wouldn't be here if we weren't advocating for public education. I think the biggest problem is, and this is what I stated when I testified, is I don't know why they're being changed, and there's no real information coming out for the most part from the state. There's no webinars, there's no in-depth information, there's just what the changes were being made. And I think if you're going to change the minimum level of education requirements in the state, that we should know why, and there should be a justification for that. And that's pretty much what I said at the meeting. And we'll see if there's information that comes out of that. But I'm going to monitor it, and you can get the State Board of Education meetings if you log onto their website. You have to sign up through Zoom, and they'll send you a link, and then you can see them. But that's something that I think bears watching. I think people should advocate and participate in the process. It was last Wednesday when the snowstorm was coming in, so there weren't that many people there, but so it was highly contentious for a variety of different reasons. So that's what I got.
I'll just say, having read through some of the documentation, it's not in language that is easy to interpret, which again, as, you know, if someone from the public were to kind of dig into this, it's just not clear what they're trying to say, and I appreciate you kind of breaking it down as far as the impact of.
That's what I think the impact is, and that's the biggest problem is. I've been in education 21 years. I'm reading that. I don't know for sure, and nobody that was responsible for the document is explaining that. And I think that's the huge issue. I don't necessarily even know if I disagree with what's going on. I don't know the ramifications of this, but it is not being expressed by the DOE or the state board, and that I feel like is super dangerous, because this could be the biggest change in educational policy in the state of New Hampshire in my lifetime. So that's the frustration that I have, like, because I feel like I should be able to figure it out when these are the state minimum standards, and it's very opaque to me. So, and the people I'm getting information from are other educators, which I'm not, like, it could be unbiased or it could be biased. I don't know. I want to know from the people that actually wrote it. So that's my contention.
And I think for me as an educator, I lean into this board, and the conversations that we've had around standards have been about high standards, right? So viewing these as minimum standards, some of these items I know that this community would never, you know, class size is a good example. Like our board policy for preschool and kindergarten is 18 when the state is 25. This community would never tolerate, nor would I, placing 25 students in a preschool classroom. It's just unheard of. But I think to Dr. Hubner's point that school districts that have to make difficult decisions with scarcer resources, I worry about them, because the minimum standards are exactly that. They are the minimum. But I kind of take refuge in the fact that this is a community where the expectation is not, can we meet the minimum standards? It is, how can we achieve the highest standards possible? That doesn't mean that we shouldn't pay really close attention, because there are a number of revisions that do require us to monitor as we move more towards the final revision and approval by the State Board of Ed.
Well, and for me, I think it's the community can believe what it wants, but the problem is if you catch the wrong board, if the wrong people get on the board, and it's not going to be this board, but 2, 3, 5 years from now, with the minimum standards, if you can have 3 board members, they can make the decisions on the budget, and they could cut the budget in half. And from what again, I don't know for sure, but from the way I'm reading the minimum standards now, that would be totally acceptable according to the minimum standards. And that's scary. Like, I don't think the community would abide by that, but the problem is it would cripple the school district for a year until you can get a different board, like a different board composition. So, and I think it leaves anybody open, even boards that, like us, that are highly supportive. And I think that's one of the things is the community needs to pay attention on who gets elected to the school board, and this has to be a key thing, which is, are you going to make sure the minimum standards stay high even if the state minimum standards are low? So, and there may be some significance with these changes with the current court cases at the state level. That was a discussion as well, is that the most recent court ruling put the minimum the state needs to provide somewhere around 10,000, but perhaps with the lowering of the minimum standards, that may change it. But again, this is all conjecture by a number of people having discussions, and we're not hearing enough from the state board or from the DOE about that. So.
I appreciate you attending that meeting, first of all, and really kind of leading the charge here for us as a board. All right. Any other questions or comments for Dr. Hubner? Okay.
Thank you for going, and
Yeah.
it's a slippery slope. It's concerning.
Okay, moving on. So board members, you will remember in the March 26th meeting, we talked about the different liaison assignments that we have each year. So typically we go through and look for any volunteers on what you might feel passionate about taking on this year. If there are any questions around these, we'll try and answer them to the best of our ability as far as the frequency of the meetings or anything. But I guess at this point, I will open it up to the board to see if there are any liaison assignments that you feel strongly about taking on.
So I'd like to stay on the safety committee.
Excellent.
That's what I've been doing for the last 2 years.
Thank you, sir.
And facilities, how often are there facilities meetings? Do we like a facilities committee or no?
So this is something that Andy and I talked a little bit about. So there's facilities which generally would meet in the fall when we do budget.
Yep.
You have that liaison that meets with Mr. Mackey to develop the budget. But there's an added layer now with our building project where, so facilities really is having someone from the board participate a little bit more on the operational side when it comes to the 2 classroom addition. That has been Mr. Smith. That doesn't mean it has to be, but I think when we look at facilities, I think having somebody who can participate in this construction project to an appropriate extent as a board member would be helpful.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, personally, I think really we need to add another square here because facilities should be separate from really kind of the construction committee, if you will, because that goes beyond just the 2 classrooms. I would want this person to kind of oversee any future construction happening in the district. So you can, pencil in a little extra square there for the renovation construction committee. Dave already kind of volunteered for that, so I will put his name in there, but that does not mean that we can't have multiple people on that if any of you feel strongly about joining.
I would like to do the second part of that behind Dave. So I'd like to work with him, and then if I can do facilities, I did student services last year, but.
Excellent.
And I think actually having 2 people on there may be helpful, and feel free to speak up on this, just simply because there are so many moving pieces and so many players that it becomes a challenge with scheduling meetings. And so having 2 people on the committee would essentially ensure that at least not guarantee, but that there'd be the participation of at least 1 board member.
Yeah, I'd also like to download as much institutional knowledge from Dave that I can. So.
Great.
Plus, it dovetails in with the safety committee as well. So.
Right. I'll go ahead and talk about the ones that I would like to be involved with. So last year I did the HCS, regular education and curriculum. I'd like to stay on that if possible. It's basically, it really becomes important during budget season when we sit down with the principals and they walk through what they need for the current year, what they can do without, and we kind of discuss back and forth what that's going to look like. So I'll take.
And I think it gets granular too. Like you got down to the number of colored pencil boxes.
Absolutely.
Stuff like that. So.
I will also take the policy committee, and I know Dave has volunteered for that as well. So it'll be good to have 2 of us from the board on that policy committee. And
Are you still going to do vouchers?
yes, and I am looking to do vouchers. Thank you for reminding me. For the newer board members, vouchers, again, is basically reviewing all of the expenses that go out the door, line by line, all of the AP invoices. So I will continue doing that. So as of right now, we are looking for an HMS education and curriculum person, student services, technology. I'm going to put myself on the wellness committee, but there can be multiple board members. If any of you are interested in joining me in district's wellness.
Just remember, you need to not string yourself out too far, because you have
Right.
more responsibilities this year, too.
Nope.
What's under the wellness committee?
Jeff, did you want to speak to?
Yeah, district level committee, looking at general policy for the district, mostly from a food service perspective. There are local, like, non-board wellness committees at each building, and they handle different, more of the fun stuff. I hate to say it. It's much more fun.
I'll do student services.
Student services? Great.
Good choice.
Yeah.
Middle school.
Go.
Another good choice.
So we're sticking David on tech.
What's technology and what's communication?
So technology would be getting together, I guess, and discussing any changes in, I know this ties into policy as well, but any changes in technology, just kind of keeping you informed on what changes we're making as a district related to technology.
And for budgeting season, for the first 5, right, we have different groups. We have central school, middle school, student services, facilities, and tech. So it actually benefits to have a different board member in each when it comes budget season.
So Rich.
Yeah.
Where's he on the other one? Oh, he's on HMS.
Anybody interested
so-
in technology?
I'll hop on technology.
Great. Thanks, Rich. And then communication committee.
I guess it'll.
Bob, are you able to speak to?
Not really. Because the communication committee, as I understand it, and other people may have more information than I do, is more a sort of liaison between the school board and the municipal side of the town. And I know that there's been, communication liaison for the town, and that position is the one that kind of interfaces with the communication liaison from the board.
I see. So I know that Dave was involved in that.
I think Jay did it last year, and then Dave did it the year before that. But I mean, he has a good relationship with the town.
Right.
Well, he's already on the policy committee and the building committee, so.
Yep.
I can
And
do
I would
that.
also suggest that if the town is moving forward with a different model, like I don't really have all of the information in regards to the role of the communication liaison, but we certainly, we know communication is something we're continuously working on. It comes up as something that we need to work on. So having a board liaison to work on improving communication, whether on the municipal side or just with the school side, I would welcome that.
I can do it, but I think I need more direction about what it is. Somebody.
Yeah. Maybe that's
Sure.
something that we could work on.
Dave could probably help you out until you feel like you're ready to go.
Definitely.
This is what happens when you're not here. We add you to stuff.
All right. We filled all the boxes. Great work.
So, Chairman, if you wouldn't mind a quick recap.
Yes. So quick recap for HCS.
Yep.
Myself. For HMS, we have Rich Poor. For student services, Missy Denton. For facilities, Dr. Hubner.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is Rich. Wellness committee is myself. Policy committee is Dave and myself. Safety committee is Dr. Hubner. Vouchers is myself. Communication Committee, we'll put both Missy and Dave on that. The NHSBA delegate is Carl. And then finally, the additional penciled-in box, the Renovation Construction Committee is Dave Smith and Dr. Hubner.
And Dr. Hubbard, I will extend an invitation for a meeting tomorrow, but I do know on such short notice, you may not be able to attend, so.
Oh, I'll come anytime you want.
Okay. Thank you, board members, for volunteering. Okay. So next, we are talking about the Superintendent Evaluation Progress Report. So in accordance with CBIR, the board was provided with compiled responses from the superintendent's direct reports, as well as the superintendent's self-evaluation. And completed evaluations from each board member were then gathered and provided for the board's review prior to tonight's meeting. So the board will schedule a non-public meeting on May 14th and again on May 28th to continue with the process for the 2023-2024 evaluation of the superintendent. Any questions or comments from the board or from Bob on the evaluation process? Okay. Moving on. Next, we have some policies in our packets. So we have 6 policies. This is the second reading. A motion is required to adopt these. So we could go through. Just giving quick kind of summaries of these policies that we're reviewing. KCD has to do with public gifts and donations. So this involves modifying the amount from $5,000 to $20,000 that the board may accept without the need for the 7-day notice and the public hearing. And this additionally suggests a revision that increases the $500 threshold for superintendent's authority to accept gifts in accordance with the policy to $2,500. So shifting from $500 to up to $2,500. The next one is GBEAA, confidential student information. This is a recommended policy that's not on the books. It addresses the district's intent to respect privacy and confidentiality of all students. Next is BBBC. This outlines a more detailed process when boards are faced with a resignation. BBBE is unexpired term fulfillment. The revisions include definitions of a vacancy and rules around filling a vacancy. And just a note here on the first read, the board amended part of letter E on page 2 to specify that a non-public session may be held for limited discussion. Policy JEB is the age of entrance. This includes language that kindergarten placement is tentative and subject to superintendent or his or her designee. And just a note here on the first read, the board amended the second paragraph of the policy to include the revised language. And then lastly, FEB is the selection of an architect. So board members, if you'll go through and just review those policies. Any questions or comments on KCD? On GBEAA, or really any of them that I just stated?
Question on JEB. Was the subject to placement tentative to subject to reassignment by superintendent, that was for first grade and kindergarten, wasn't it? So shouldn't that be in two places, that highlighted section?
That is correct, but I do believe if we look at the last paragraph, such placement, that is specific to first grade.
Yep, gotcha.
Yep, so I think the issue was there was no language for kindergarten, but there was for first grade.
Get it.
The board had asked that we add the language for kindergarten, so that's the new language.
No other questions?
All right. Board members, I'll just check again. Any other questions on these policies? Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion to accept the policies.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? Okay. So next, we are going to talk about professional staff renominations. So Superintendent Thompson is going to present the 24-25 renominations list for board approval. Specific and personally identifying questions must be addressed in a non-public session under RSA 91A32.
Excellent. So thank you. Just so the board, to remind the board, but also to make the community aware that RSA 189:14A requires the renomination of our teachers on an annual basis. And that renomination process needs to take place prior to April 15th. So that's our statutory requirement. So for the board's consideration, you have a list of all of our professional staff, all of our teachers in your packet. But this will require board approval. Given the nature of the list and personnel, I would welcome specific questions that people had. I am excited to highlight some of the accomplishments of our teachers, some of which maybe do not want to be recognized publicly at a school board meeting. So if it were the board's desire, we could have a conversation in non-public.
So board members, I think it would be a good idea to go into non-public when we have the opportunity to do so in the agenda here, just because I think it is important to highlight some of the reasonings around these renominations. Yes.
I'm new to learning this New Hampshire process, so this would be helpful for me as well to be able to ask questions, because it is very different than what I'm used to.
Yeah, and so we can convene to go in now.
Okay.
Do you have a preference in terms of, should we wait till the end of the meeting?
Yeah. wait till the end.
Okay, so, we can save the non-public for the end of the meeting, and then we'd vote on the renomination list.
Okay. Perfect. Right.
Just really quickly, and this is because I'm a giant nerd. So on average, we're roughly 12 years of experience for the staff members in the school district, which is absolutely amazing. And especially our special ed department has about 11 years, which, that's invaluable. So I'm really happy with our ability to retain people, and I really appreciate it, and that has a lot to do with the administration. So great job with that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now we will go into board comments and correspondence. Anything the board wants to discuss? Okay. And the consent agenda, Bob.
Yeah, so there is no personnel report, so moving on to the superintendent's report. There's an endless amount of really great stuff to report out on, and there's always a danger that I know I'm going to miss something. So I do appreciate Mrs. Milbury sharing some of the things that are going on at the middle school. First and foremost, what an amazing day yesterday was with the eclipse. And, I had the opportunity to go to the central school, and, aside from the obvious, which is this really amazing experience, what I enjoyed seeing was I believe we had around 60 parents that were able to come to school and view the eclipse with their child, with their class. And I just thought that the parents that I had talked to, I think they appreciated that opportunity. It really was an amazing event, and I thank Nicole Tomaselli. This is what Nicole does. She gets an idea, she runs with it, and it turns into something really extraordinary, and that's exactly what yesterday was. I also want to congratulate Laura Johnston. She is a special educator here at the middle school. So Laura presented today at the New Hampshire School Administrators Innovations Conference, and I feel a little bit like a broken record because we've had multiple Hampstead staff members who have been selected, and it is a selection process to be able to present at state conferences this year. And so she presented on community-based learning, the integration of experiential and life skills program through community-based learning experiences. The students that she works with, she has just done a tremendous job of providing them with a lot of community-based learning opportunities, which is in our strategic plan and is really important. And so I really admire the work that she does to make sure that her kids get all that they need. So also wanted to congratulate the Destination Imagination teams at both the central school and the middle school. So the central school in the competition in Goffstown, they placed first. I love the name Illuminating Skittle Squad, which is just absolutely amazing. Actually, Andy and I had an opportunity during a recent visit to the central school to sit in with that team while they were in the production phase for this most recent event, to see the critical thinking, the creativity, the energy, the hard work of these kids. It's just, they're the future engineers. They are the, I just have such tremendous confidence in the next generation because these kids are talented and enthusiastic about what they do. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention the second place finish by the middle school team that's called To Be Continued. And that's exactly what it is. It's to be continued because both teams have now been, are now going to go on to the Global DI event that is in Kansas City in May. And in review of Hampstead School District policy, I think it's JLL, there is a policy that provides some support, financial support to our teams and our families who will be in attendance at this event in Kansas City, which is really exciting that not only do our kids get to go, but the district gets to help provide that financial support to make it happen. So it's really exciting. I also don't want to miss the opportunity to, and there'll be a lot more information that comes out about this, but we have Family STEAM Night on May 9th from 5:30 to 7:30 here at the middle school. And I had the opportunity to sort of review the program. It is shaping up to be an absolutely amazing community event. They've taken, so when I say they, I'm talking about Sarah Wise-Carver, who's the Ventures teacher at the Central School, and Heather Mayu, who's the Ventures teachers here at the middle school. along with a whole host of others. They're taking what is already a really amazing event that it could go unchanged, and people would be blown away, but they're making some additions, and I'm not going to reveal what those are because some of the stuff is still being worked out. But in addition to the giving games and the CTE programs from Pinkerton coming, I think people are really in for a treat, and so I would encourage the community to consider attending. The way the evening is designed, we accept donations for the Salt Box Food Pantry, so you can bring non-perishable items with you. And then the last thing, it was talked a little bit about at the last meeting, is the submission of our SAP grant. That's a Student Assistance Professional. We need to keep having serious conversations about the mental health of the children in this community. Our schools need additional resources at both schools. This grant is a step in that direction. Essentially, the student assistance professional, should we get the grant, would be a full-time position. They would work with some of our more at-risk students. They would also work as a community parent liaison in aligning outside community resources to families that are in need, because we know in New Hampshire those resources are pretty scarce. And then also this person would work to help enhance and improve our multi-tiered systems of support, which we rolled out this year. It's going well, but it could go a lot better. Just like everything that we do, there's always room for improvement. So that grant has been submitted. I'm hoping that at the May 13th meeting, I can come back here and look for the board's approval. Because again, if we were to receive the grant, that's not the final step. The final step would be the board approving the acceptance of that grant. So those are the items that I have. I would entertain any questions that folks might have about anything I have spoken about or anything that I did not.
Do you anticipate getting word on whether you received that SAP grant prior to the meeting?
I don't. I actually had this conversation with Nicole, and we don't know the timeline yet. It is a competitive grant. I do feel confident based upon reviewing the application before submission, the data that was presented. We have a very strong application, and obviously I'm biased, but I'm hopeful, but I don't have a timeline.
And again, just to clarify, that was it 20 or 25% contribution from the district?
We would. Now, it's difficult for me to give an exact dollar amount because some of it is, we don't know we would get the grant, and identifying who the person is would need to occur first before we need to understand the total impact. There's also some provisions in the grant for like-kind contributions, and essentially what that means is if we were to provide technology, professional development, that contributes to the 25% that the district needs to offer. So you would anticipate that I'd have more information about what that budget number impact would be. Maybe not even for May 13th, but either later towards the end of the school year or even over the summer.
Okay. Board members, any questions or comments for Bob? I'll just speak to DI, again, having attended the conference, not this one, but the one prior. I think it speaks to the strength of the DI program in that I saw a lot of projects that were where the parents clearly intervened and helped their groups. And what I personally loved to see was that the teams that advanced, the teams that were rewarded, were clearly the kids that did everything. And as an organization, I think it's really important that they recognize that and they clearly value it. And it just speaks to the heart and the spirit of why DI exists. And it also speaks to how hard these kids worked and the level of effort that they put in that they directed everything. And seeing Mrs. Wisecarver and the other coaches, they take it super seriously of not intervening and, asking guiding questions, but really letting the kids find the answer. So I just think it's an awesome program and an awesome honor for those kids. Okay, other business or old business? I don't have any other or old business. Does anyone have? Okay. At this point, we are going to go into a non-public under RSA 91A3C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. This exemption shall extend to any application for assistance or tax abatement or waiver of a fee, fine, or other levy if based on inability to pay or poverty of the applicant.
Would you be okay to do a roll call vote?
Yes.
Would that be okay? Melissa? Carl? Andy?
Yes.
Rich? All right.
We will come out of non-public because we'll make a motion to accept, to approve the renominations.